The families who, in fact, were victimized by the gun shooting that we've seen.
Specifically address crime, not just in Bernalillo County, but for the state of New Mexico.
And then ultimately, if the Supreme Court takes the case, the Supreme Court hears it in Washington.
Contacting federal entities such as the FBI and the U.S. Attorney to assist us and make sure we work as a team.
During a recent press conference, the sheriff of Bernalillo County, New Mexico, really didn't mince words when it came to the governor's temporary ban on concealed and open carry of firearms. He basically said, "No way, this goes against our constitutional rights, folks." The sheriff was fired up, and he made it crystal clear that he thought the governor's order was totally unconstitutional. He firmly believed that our Second Amendment right to bear arms should never be put on hold, even in times of crisis. He wasn't just talking about guidelines, he was talking about the very foundation of our country. One of the sheriff's big arguments against the gun ban was that it messed with the rights of responsible gun owners who'd already jumped through all the hoops, like background checks and following the law. He thought it was just plain wrong to take away their right to bear arms even for a little while. He was all about not messing with our rights without a darn good reason and proper due process. He stressed the importance of elected officials, like himself, looking out for the people who put them in office. He reminded everyone that he was elected to represent the folks of Bernalillo County, and that meant protecting their interests, including their constitutional rights. So when he went head-to-head with the governor's order, he was saying, "I'm here to do my job and protect your liberties." This wasn't some political move for the sheriff, it was all about sticking to his principles. He made it clear that he was all about the Constitution and the rights it gives us. It was a passionate defense of our values our country was built on, values that have stood the test of time and are a big part of who we are. The sheriff's challenge was all about standing up for the Second Amendment and the people he serves. It showed how important elected officials are in making sure we keep our constitutional rights intact, and reminded us all about the responsibility leaders have in preserving the Constitution. Commitment to the Constitution. The sheriff of Bernalillo County, New Mexico, stood resolute in his commitment to upholding the Constitution during a press conference that resonated with passion and conviction. It was evident that his primary duty, as he stated emphatically, was to protect the Constitution and the fundamental rights it bestows upon the citizens of his county. This unwavering commitment is a cornerstone of American law enforcement and a testament to the sheriff's dedication to the principles upon which the nation was founded. In the press conference, the sheriff left no room for ambiguity regarding his stance on the governor's order to ban concealed and open carry of firearms for a 30-day period. He boldly asserted that he could not, in good conscience, enforce an order that he believed to be in violation of the Constitution,
Other than punish law-abiding citizens from their constitutional right to self-defense.
I'm about to sign into law bipartisan gun safety legislation.
Completely overshadowed the robust conversations that we had with the governor in the office.
Those laws will still be in effect until first the Court of Appeals hears it in New York.
Specifically the Second Amendment, which grants citizens the rights to bear arms. This declaration underscores the sheriff's deep-seated conviction that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that any attempt to infringe upon the rights enshrined within it must be met with steadfast resistance. The sheriff's commitment to the Constitution is not merely a professional duty, but a personal and moral obligation. He sees himself as a guardian of the liberties and freedoms that have long defined the American way of life. His refusal to comply with the governor's order is a testament to his unwavering belief in the principles that underpin the Second Amendment, principles that have been fiercely defended by generations of Americans throughout the nation's history. This commitment to the Constitution also reflects the critical role that elected sheriffs play in the American system of governance. Sheriffs are elected by the people they serve, and their primary duty is to protect the rights and interests of their constituents. By taking a stand against what he views as an unconstitutional order, the sheriff is fulfilling his duty to represent the wills and values of the people of Bernalillo County, who elected him to office. The sheriff's commitment to the Constitution goes beyond mere rhetoric. It is a tangible expression of his dedication to ensuring that the principles upon which the U.S. was founded remain intact and unassailable. His refusal to enforce the order sends a clear message that he will not compromise on the rights and liberties of his constituents, even in the face of political pressure or directives from higher authorities. The sheriff's unwavering commitment to the Constitution is a testament to the enduring importance of upholding the rights and freedoms that are enshrined within it. His refusal to enforce the governor's order is not an act of defiance, but a principled stand in defense of the Second Amendment and the rights of the people he serves. Ineffectiveness in curbing gun violence. The sheriff's assertion that the governor's order is ineffective in addressing gun violence raises important questions about the efficacy of such measures. His argument centers on the notion that criminals do not adhere to laws or public health orders, rendering a ban on firearms largely irrelevant to them. Instead, it is law-abiding citizens who would bear the brunt of such restrictions. This stance underscores the sheriff's practical approach to law enforcement, rooted in a genuine concern for the safety of his constituents. One of the central points made by the sheriff is that criminals, by their very nature, do not abide by the law. They are individuals who have already demonstrated a willingness to engage in illegal activities, including violent crimes. Therefore, the idea that imposing additional restrictions on firearms will deter them from acquiring and using guns is questionable at best. In fact, it could be argued that such measures might inadvertently disarm law-abiding citizens, leaving them more vulnerable to criminal activity. The sheriff's perspective aligns with a broader debate on gun control in the U.S. Advocates of gun rights often argue that restrictive measures primarily affect those who are already law-abiding citizens. Criminals, they contend, are unlikely to be dissuaded by new laws and regulations. Instead, these laws may serve to disarm responsible gun owners who rely on firearms for self-defense. This raises legitimate concerns about the unintended consequences of gun control policies. The sheriff's emphasis on practicality and the real-world implications of policy decisions is noteworthy.
On what we are going to do to curb gun violence and for people to stop being victims.
And would like the government to transfer those firearms, which he doesn't possess himself.
Respectfully requesting, as an elected official, to please consider a special session.
It reflects a commitment to evidence-based law enforcement rather than relying on ideological positions. By highlighting that criminals do not follow laws or public health orders, he underscores the need for policies that address the root causes of gun violence, such as poverty, mental health issues, and the illegal firearms trade. The sheriff also invites a broader conversation about alternative approaches to reducing gun violence. Rather than focusing solely on restricting access to firearms, policymakers may need to consider comprehensive strategies that address the underlying factors contributing to violence. This could involve investments in community programs, mental health services, and efforts to disrupt the illegal gun trade. Role of constitutionally elected sheriffs. Throughout the press conference, the sheriff places significant emphasis on the essential role that constitutionally elected sheriffs play in safeguarding citizens' rights. He views himself as the last line of defense against government overreach and tyranny, making a compelling case for the importance of local elections in preserving the principles of democracy and individual freedoms. The sheriff's argument about the vital role of constitutionally elected sheriffs resonates with the principles of American democracy. In the U.S., sheriffs are often elected by their communities, as they serve as a crucial link between law enforcement and the citizens they protect. This direct accountability to the people is a cornerstone of democratic governance, ensuring that law enforcement agencies remain responsive to the needs and values of their constituents.
My job is to keep the peace and to make sure that the citizens of Bernalillo County are safe.
Restrictions that New York passed on their statute about where you can have guns, places that don't have a sign.
I'm a law enforcement professional. This order will not do anything to curb gun violence.
As a condition of gaining bail before trial, the government has kept possession of the firearms ever since then.
By highlighting his role as a safeguard against government overreach and tyranny, the sheriff underscores the broader historical context of the American system of government. The framers of the U.S. Constitution designed a system of checks and balances to prevent the concentration of power in any one branch or level of government. Elected sheriffs represent one such check, helping to ensure that law enforcement does not become an instrument of oppression. The sheriff's emphasis on local elections as a means of preserving individual liberties serves as a reminder of the importance of grassroots democracy. While national and state-level elections often garner more attention, local elections can have a profound impact on the day-to-day lives of citizens. Sheriffs, as locally elected officials, have a unique ability to shape law enforcement policies and priorities in ways that directly impact their communities. The sheriff's stance underscores the diversity of views within law enforcement. Not all law enforcement officials share the same perspective on the role of government and individual rights. This diversity of opinion within the law enforcement community reflects the broader diversity of thought and ideology in American society, and reinforces the notion that democracy thrives when a range of voices and perspectives are heard and respected. the sheriff's emphasis on the ineffectiveness of certain gun control measures, and the vital role of constitutionally elected sheriffs highlights important aspects of the ongoing debate on gun violence and the principles of American democracy. These discussions are not only relevant to the specific policies in question, but also speak to fundamental questions about the balance between individual rights and collective safety in a democratic society. Lack of communication. The revelation made by the sheriff regarding the minimal notice provided by the governor for the order and the expressed disagreement by his office underscores a critical issue in governance: the lack of effective communication and collaboration between key government officials. This lack of communication is not merely a procedural hiccup. It reveals deeper systemic challenges within the government machinery that can have far-reaching implications. In any functioning government, especially in a democratic system, effective communication between different branches and levels of government is essential for the smooth execution of policies and orders. The governor, as the chief executive of the state, wields significant authority and is responsible for making decisions that affect the lives of millions of citizens. In this context, the minimal notice provided by the governor regarding a significant order raises questions about transparency, accountability, and the principles of good governance. Firstly, the lack of notice can be seen as a violation of transparency principles. Transparency in governance is crucial because it allows citizens to understand the decisions made by their elected representatives and hold them accountable. When the sheriff, who plays a critical role in maintaining law and order within the state, is not adequately informed about an important order, it can erode the public's trust in the government's ability to act in their best interests. Secondly, the disagreement expressed by the sheriff's office highlights a lack of collaboration and consultation within the government. Effective governance often requires input and cooperation from various agencies and officials with expertise in different areas. When the governor does not seek input or consider differing viewpoints within his own administration, it can lead to suboptimal decision-making and potentially adverse consequences. The contentious nature of this lack of communication can exacerbate existing political divisions. In a polarized political environment where trust in government institutions is already fragile, such incidents can further erode public confidence. It can also lead to the perception that decisions are being made unilaterally and without regard for the concerns of those directly affected. The lack of communication and collaboration between the sheriff and the governor highlights broader issues related to transparency, accountability, and effective governance. It not only impacts the immediate situation, but also has implications for public trust in government and the overall health of the democratic process. Addressing these issues requires a commitment to open communication, collaboration, and a recognition that decisions made at the highest levels of government have real consequences for the lives of citizens. Legal and political ramifications. The sheriff's suggestion that the governor's order may have legal and political consequences opens a window into the complex and multifaceted nature of governance, where legal and political considerations often intersect and can have significant impacts on the functioning of a government, especially in an election year. Legal ramifications. One of the primary legal concerns raised by the sheriff is the potential for lawsuits stemming from the governor's order. This concern is not unwarranted, as the legality of executive orders is subject to scrutiny and can be challenged in a court of law. When the executive branch takes action that are perceived as overreaching its authority or infringing upon the rights of citizens, it invites legal challenges.
My oath was to protect the Constitution, and that is what I will do.
And that's why gun owners wanted the Supreme Court to put the statute on hold. They have now said no.
Other than this ban being unconstitutional, here are other reasons why I will not enforce the order.
This morning, though, we're here on a critical issue, gun violence.
Legal challenges to executive orders often hinge on constitutional principles and the separation of powers. In a democratic system with checks and balances, the judiciary serves as a vital mechanism to ensure that executive actions are in compliance with the law and the Constitution. If it is determined that the governor's order exceeded his constitutional authority or violated the rights of individuals or entities, it could result in the order being declared unconstitutional or legally void. The outcome of such legal challenges can set important precedents, shaping the legal landscape for future executive actions. Therefore, the legal ramifications of the governor's order extend beyond the immediate situation and have the potential to influence the balance of power between branches of government and the scope of executive authority. Political ramifications. The sheriff also alludes to potential political backlash resulting from the governor's order, particularly in an election year. This political dimension underscores the close relationship between legal and political considerations in governance. In an election year, political decisions and actions by elected officials often face heightened scrutiny from both the public and political opponents. If the governor's order is seen as controversial or unpopular, it could become a focal point of political campaigns. Opposition candidates may use it as a rallying cry to mobilize voters against the incumbent administration, further intensifying the political climate. The governor's handling of the situation and his ability to navigate the political fallout can significantly impact his chances of re-election or the fortunes of his party in other elections. It's not uncommon for political leaders to face repercussions at the ballot box if their decisions are perceived as detrimental to the interests or values of their constituents. The political ramifications can extend beyond the governor's office to the broader political landscape. The order may influence the priorities of legislators, the stance of political parties, and the dynamics of political discourse in the state. It can also contribute to the shaping of public opinion on issues related to executive authority and government decision-making. The consequences of such actions can reverberate through the legal and political landscape, shaping the future of the state's governance and political landscape. Impact beyond the Second Amendment. The sheriff's decision to extend the discussion beyond the Second Amendment and delve into the broader implications of the governor's order reveals a deep concern for the preservation of constitutional rights and the potential dangers of setting a precedent that could erode these rights, including the First Amendment. The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, which protects the right to bear arms, is just one piece of a complex constitutional framework that safeguards individual liberties and democratic values. When the sheriff raises the issue of suspending one constitutional right, he is highlighting a critical concept in constitutional law, the potential for a domino effect. In other words, if one constitutional right can be suspended or limited without due process or justifiable cause, it sets a dangerous precedent that could be applied to other rights as well. The First Amendment, for instance, guarantees fundamental freedoms such as freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and the right to peacefully assemble. If the government, in this case, the governor, can unilaterally suspend the Second Amendment right without rigorous scrutiny or a compelling reason, it begs the question of whether similar actions could be taken against the First Amendment or any other constitutionally protected rights. This concern isn't hypothetical. It touches upon the core of what makes a democratic society function: individual freedoms and the rule of law.
While I understand the urgency, the temporary ban challenges the foundations of our Constitution.
Saying you can bring a gun in here, you can't go into with a gun.
But most importantly, it is unconstitutional.
Mr. Henderson turned over his firearms to the FBI before he was convicted.
The sheriff's emphasis on the potential for a dangerous precedent resonates with the broader public because it underscores the interconnectedness of constitutional rights. By highlighting the risk of a slippery slope, he encourages citizens to think beyond the immediate issue and consider the long-term implications of governmental actions. This type of awareness is crucial in a democracy, as it empowers the public to be vigilant and hold government officials accountable for their decisions. The sheriff's discussion of the broader implications of the governor's order serves as a reminder of the fragility of constitutional rights and the need to safeguard them from encroachment. It prompts a critical conversation about the balance between individual liberties and the government's duty to protect public safety, ensuring that any infringement on these rights is both justifiable and proportionate. Opposition from other authorities. The sheriff's objection to the governor's order is not an isolated stance. It finds support among other influential figures within the jurisdiction. Notably, the district attorney and the city police commissioner have emerged as vocal opponents of the governor's directive. This opposition is not merely a difference in perspective, but rather a collective resistance that underscores the complexity of the situation and magnifies the significance of the sheriff's stance. The district attorney, as a pivotal figure in the criminal justice system, plays a critical role in prosecuting cases and upholding the law. Their opposition to the governor's order suggests a deep-seated concern about its legality and potential ramifications. The district attorney is responsible for ensuring that all legal proceedings are conducted with integrity and fairness. Any order that appears to compromise these principles is likely to be met with strong resistance. Their expertise in interpreting and applying the law gives weight to their objections. The district attorney is also acutely aware of the public's perception of the criminal justice system. Any perceived overreach of executive power, as in the case of the governor's order, could erode public trust. This concern may drive their opposition to the order as they seek to maintain a balance between enforcing the law and preserving public confidence in the legal system. The district attorney's objections may stem from a belief that the governor's order infringes upon constitutional rights or due process. They are duty-bound to uphold the Constitution and protect citizens' rights, which can put them in direct opposition to any directive they perceive as unconstitutional. The district attorney's opposition, with its legal expertise and commitment to justice, bolsters the sheriff's position by lending credibility to the argument that the governor's order may not be in the best interest of the community. The city police commissioner, as the head of the local law enforcement agency, holds a crucial role in maintaining public safety and order. Their opposition to the governor's order signals that law enforcement professionals on the front lines of implementing policies have reservations about its feasibility and impact. Law enforcement agencies are responsible for implementing and enforcing policies on the ground. The commissioner's objections may be rooted in concerns about the practical challenges associated with carrying out the governor's order. This could include issues related to resource allocation, manpower, and logistics. Police commissioners are attuned to community dynamics and the importance of positive relationships between law enforcement and the public. They may worry that the governor's order, if unpopular or perceived as heavy-handed, could strain these critical community relationships, making it harder for officers to effectively serve and protect. The commissioner's primary responsibility is to ensure public safety. Any perceived risks or disruptions resulting from the governor's order would be of utmost concern. Their opposition may stem from a belief that the order could potentially compromise public safety in the jurisdiction. The commissioner's opposition aligns with the sheriff's stance in highlighting the practical challenges and potential risks associated with the governor's order. Their on-the-ground perspective adds a layer of credibility to the argument that the order should be reconsidered. The sheriff's stance against the governor's order gained significant traction through the opposition of other authorities, including the district attorney and the city police commissioner. These key figures bring legal expertise, a commitment to justice, and a practical understanding of law enforcement operations to the table. Sheriff's appeal to common sense. The sheriff emphasizes the fundamental concept of self-defense as a natural, intrinsic right. He invokes common sense by asking his audience to consider the scenario of a person facing an imminent threat to their life or the lives of their loved ones. In such a dire situation, he asks, what would common sense dictate? Surely it would dictate that an individual has the right to protect themselves and their family from harm. The sheriff dissects the flaws in the logic behind the order that seeks to restrict citizens' ability to defend themselves. He employs common sense reasoning to expose the fallacies in the argument that limiting access to firearms or self-defense tools would make society safer. Drawing upon statistics and real-world examples, he illustrates that criminals who disregard the law are unlikely to be deterred by such restrictions. Instead, these measures only serve to disarm law-abiding citizens, leaving them vulnerable and defenseless in the face of danger.
Curb gun violence and so many other crimes that we see in Bernalillo County.
Crime for someone who's already been convicted of a felony to possess any firearm.
The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office will not enforce this segment of the order.
Implemented by states, my administration is going to focus on how they administer and whether or not they violate other laws.
The sheriff's appeal to common sense extends to the broader context of individual freedoms and government intervention. He reminds the audience of the core principles upon which their society was founded, the belief in individual rights and limited government power. Using simple, relatable examples, he illustrates how excessive government intervention can erode these cherished principles. His message resonates with the audience as they can readily grasp the idea that a government overstepping its bounds threatens the very foundation of their democracy. By tapping into the audience's innate understanding of self-defense, personal liberty, and limited government, he creates a compelling case for his position. Defenders of constitutional rights. In his closing statements, the sheriff delivers a passionate and compelling reaffirmation of the critical roles of sheriffs as defenders of constitutional rights. He underscores the pivotal importance of preserving these rights and invites viewers to contemplate the profound implications of executive overreach and tyranny on the fabric of their society. The sheriff's closing statements are imbued with a profound sense of duty and responsibility towards upholding the Constitution. He reminds the audience that sheriffs are not just law enforcement officers, but also guardians of the highest law of the land, the Constitution itself. This declaration taps into a deep reservoir of respect for the Constitution and its principles, resonating with the viewers who hold these ideals dear. It emphasizes that defending constitutional rights is not a mere job, but a solemn obligation for sheriffs. Furthermore, the sheriff's passionate plea to the citizens to support constitutionally elected sheriffs in their communities reinforces the idea of local accountability and grassroots democracy. He encourages the audience to consider the consequences of allowing unchecked executive power to trample on their constitutional rights. The sheriff's message serves as a rallying cry for civic engagement and activism. He calls upon the viewers to actively participate in the democratic process, emphasizing that electing sheriffs who uphold the Constitution is a crucial step in safeguarding their liberties. His impassioned appeal inspires a sense of agency among the audience, reminding them that they have the power to shape the future of their communities and protect their constitutional rights. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.